What if Muichiro reached his full potential? Despite being only 14 years old, Muichiro is already one of the strongest hashira and demon slayer. He's fought against many different powerful demons and carries the bloodline of Yoriichi and Michikatsu, two of the greatest demon slayers in history. This alone earns him the title of an extremely high potential character, if not one of the highest potential characters in the entire series. But the question remains, just how strong could he become if he fully unlocked that potential? I'll describe various factors such as his feats, statements, breathing forms, and just raw talent to give an answer on where he would be if he didn't die during the Infinity Castle. I will be talking about stuff about the new movie and stuff in the manga moving forward, so just a spoiler warning for all of you. If you enjoy Demon Slayer content, make sure to like and subscribe, because I got plenty more on the way and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. With all that being said, let's talk about the potential man of Demon Slayer. So, Demon Slayer as a whole is no stranger when it comes to characters having a significant amount of potential. For example, Gyome became a hashira within just 2 months, and grew to become the strongest hashira of his generation in a short period of time. Rengoku also quickly became a hashira, with very little information on how to use his own breathing style, and yet still hadn't even reached his peak. Shinobu and Obanai are extremely strong and skillful in their own right, but were held back by their physical limitations. Even much weaker characters like Zenitsu and Inosuke were able to fight against the strongest demons at a young age, with very little time to develop their breathing forms. For example, Zenitsu beat an upper moon by just using 2 breathing forms. Most of the main cast already hold a lot of potential on their own, but what sets Muichiro apart from the rest is that these characters I've mentioned have either reached their peak or already on the cusp of achieving it. But Muichiro is already on these characters' level despite being the youngest and inexperienced out of any of them, and is arguably on the stronger side of this group if we take into account the Demon Slayer marks and just his feats in general throughout the story, which I can shift to now. When it comes to hashira without their marks, Muichiro is actually not that impressive. Matter of fact, he is probably the weakest hashira if we're talking strictly hashiras in their base forms. This is mainly because he didn't give off the best showcase against Gyoko. Specifically, he could not sustain himself against Gyoko's blood demon art. All it took was a single water trap and Muichiro was already going to die. But setting that aside, once he unlocks the mark, he was not only able to easily negate through almost all of Gyoko's attacks, but Muichiro was literally able to toy with him, stating that he was also holding back, and then swiftly one-shotting him right after saying that. Let's put this into perspective. We have seen most of the hashira be able to defeat an upper moon, but this is usually due to a number of factors such as immense teamwork, crazy abilities like the see-through ward and red blade, or just straight up plot being used against them. And this was the case for literally every single fight against an upper moon, which means Muichiro was legitimately the only character in the series to beat an upper moon all on his own, without any help or plot on his side. I know people will mention Zenitsu's fight against Kagaku being the same thing, but Kagaku is very heavily implied that he's not really a fully developed upper moon. He is nowhere near as strong as a real upper ranked demon such as Gyoko, which like I said Muichiro had no problem dealing with. Now this is not to say that none of the hashira are capable of replicating this. Gyome or Sanemi could pull the same thing off very easily if they wanted to, but it's just the fact that Muichiro was able to do this at a very young age. No other character in the story is doing that at 14, which already goes to show how far his potential could reach. Now if we're talking about Muichiro's fight against Kokoshibo, he unfortunately did not perform that well. Regardless of that, once Gyome and Sanemi came in for help, Muichiro was able to contribute a lot more, specifically when he was able to grip his blade so hard that it turned red. What is important about this is the sheer endurance Muichiro was able to show. Even after he was cut in half, he was still able to continue holding his blade, and managed to hold onto Kokoshibo's body until it was finally put down, which in my opinion is probably one of the most underrated endurance feats in the entire series. So just to recap everything, Muichiro at just the age of 14 has been the only hashira to beat an upper moon one-on-one, the first hashira to be able to unlock a mark and red blade, and performed one of the best endurance feats in the series. Not to mention he also shares the same blood with the strongest demon slayers being Yoriichi and Michikatsu. With all of these points in mind, Muichiro without a doubt will be one of the strongest characters in the series if he managed to reach his prime. But just how strong specifically? Would he be stronger than any of the current hashira? Could he beat all the upper moons? And could he even surpass Yoriichi? Now it's not very simple to assume exactly where he would be in power and abilities, mainly because I can't really say for sure how strong Muichiro is even at 14. His only 2 major fights were against Gyoko and Kokoshibo, where Muichiro had no problem dealing with Gyoko, but he had no fighting chance against Kokoshibo. So we know he's a step above the weaker side of the upper moons, but clearly isn't on the level of the strongest demons like Kokoshibo or even Doma. My best guess is that Muichiro should be at least on the level of Hantengu or maybe even Akaza. It is also shown that Muichiro for a brief moment was able to tap into the see-through world, which would mean if he had the chance to grow, he would eventually at some point learn how to use it more efficiently. There is also the mark we have to take account for, since that does mean he will die at the age of 25, but that doesn't really matter too much since pretty much any character would reach their prime at that age anyway. So firstly, when it comes to the hashira, Muichiro would easily become the strongest one by far. Like I said, the fact that he's at least on par with the hashira despite his age would easily prove that he can far surpass them if he honed his skills. I don't think that would be questioned. As for the upper moons, it's clear that he should be the majority of them, including Akaza and probably even Doma. Akaza's main fighting style is with his compass needle, which is very useful to predict someone's battle spirit, but a supposed full potential Muichiro would also have his own precog with the see-through world. Not to mention the red blade that he will most likely have, since he was able to achieve it on his own during the Kokushibo fight. Those two abilities and just Muichiro's strength alone, I believe is definitely enough to overwhelm Akaza pretty easily. Doma is kind of the same case. His blood demon art is meant to negate breathing style since you can't breathe in the ice particles, but we know it's not a complete full counter since Shinobu and Kanao can still continue fighting after breathing it in. If they can get themselves around it, then Muichiro for sure can easily get around it as well. What is a little more contentious would be whether he could beat Kokushibo on his own. If we assume Muichiro would activate the see-through world and red blade at the start, then this can actually be an extremely close fight. Kokushibo of course would still have an advantage when it comes to stamina, durability, and just overall skill. But Muichiro is still going to be putting a lot more damage on Kokushibo compared to someone like Gyomei or Sanemi. If we just ignore the raw power Kokushibo has, his most effective way of fighting will be through his see-through world and the longsword. Having the longsword makes fighting him extremely difficult as you can't really get in close because of the amount of AoE attacks being spammed from a distance. But also assuming this prime Muichiro would also have the complete control of the see-through world, getting around those attacks would actually be pretty simple. As we've seen in the manga, by just tapping into that state for the first time, Gyomei and Muichiro were managing to find openings through Kokushibo's breathing forms. And if this hypothetical prime Muichiro has at the time and experience to master the see-through world, getting in close and even fighting at an equal footing would be no problem. What would actually determine the winner of this fight is stamina. If this fight were to take place inside the Infinity Castle, it is more than likely Kokushibo is still going to win. At some point, Muichiro is going to run out of breathing forms, and by that time he will probably be heavily damaged, meanwhile Kokushibo is still in pristine condition. So while I do think a primed up Muichiro could contend pretty evenly, I just don't really see him winning, or just overpowering Kokushibo in any way at least. Koku has been Upper Moon 1 for 500 years, and he's still from the strongest era of Demon Slayers. It's just way too much skill and experience for Miui to really do anything meaningful. So with that, I guess that automatically answers the question if he could surpass Yoriichi, to which I say absolutely not. Believe it or not, there are other characters who have more potential than Miui. Yoriichi, for example, was literally born with both the Demon Slayer mark and the see-through world. He was even beating Master Swordsmen at just 7 years old. Even in his old age, he was considered just as strong as he was in his prime. In comparison, Muichiro, no matter how old he is, stands no chance whatsoever. Even Tanjiro arguably has more potential than Miui. If we were to compare what they've done throughout the story, it isn't really close. While Miui did one-shot Upper Moon 5, Tanjiro managed to hold his own against Akaza on numerous occasions, even fighting evenly with Muzan for a brief moment. Not to mention he fought against 2 Upper Moons beforehand. While Muichiro was the first hashira to unlock his mark, Tanjiro was the sole reason for that, as he was the first Demon Slayer in general to unlock the mark since the Sengoku era. And this goes without saying, Tanjiro is a user of sun breathing, which already makes his potential higher than any other breathing user. So for a final recap, if we assume Muichiro has the time to fully develop things like his mist breathing, see-through world, and red blade, then he far surpasses any Demon Slayer that isn't Yoriichi or full potential Tanjiro, and he can pretty much beat any demon besides Kokushibo. Both I think can go back and forth, but Koku in my opinion will still be stronger overall. But if you have different thoughts, let me know in the comments. Do you think he's any stronger or weaker than what I've just said? If you do enjoy Demon Slayer videos, please do me a favor by liking and subscribing. It motivates me heavily to keep going. If you want a video talking about Tanjiro reaching his potential, then let me know what you would think. Thank you for watching. Peace.